If people who do not like the world they live in don't see us confidently making the case another world really is possible, and if you don't represent that belief, that if you don't truly believe that, well, then they might easily follow those who preach other beliefs, those who misuse all kinds of religions to preach hate, and I'm here, and I hope with you to move forward the gospel of love, peace, and justice. Now, I changed my presentations, or I amended it, I shall say, slightly after the terrorist attacks in Paris, which brought the question of terrorism and anti-terrorism back to people's mind, from which it has escaped in Canada slightly since the election of Trudeau, because he's such a sympathetic guy. So that people almost forgot that he voted in favor of Bill C-51. But now terror is back on people's minds in the first world. And that reminded me actually of a book that was written by a guy called Samuel Huntington about the clash of civilizations. Huntington is one of those academics who also are welcome in the corridors of power, making policy suggestions. He came out with this idea of a clash of civilizations shortly after the Soviet Union. The big fight between capitalism and communism had ended, and he said they'll still be fighting, and it will be between different civilizations. Looking back at that, it almost looks like as if he was writing at the time a roadmap to create conflicts all over the world. And the main line of conflict, of course, is between the Judeo-Christian world and the Muslim world, at least in the thinking of people like Huntington. Thinking about these things yesterday when everybody was following things on the news and on Facebook, I thought it's actually quite appalling. First off, the idea that there is a Judeo-Christian world I find kind of as a slap in the face of the Holocaust survivors thinking about the role of Christianity in the Holocaust. So just claiming that Jews and Christians are a united front against Muslims is more than appalling. It's also appalling in terms of policies, world politics since the Second World War. Considering that there's one terrorist state which is never deemed to deserve to be introduced to the concept of democracy, like some others in the area, and that's Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia surely qualifies as one of the most reactionary regimes in the world. And if you pretend not to like Islamist fundamentalists, well, you might quit your ties with Saudi Arabia. But most of all, what kind of irritated and frustrates me is that attacks by Islamist fundamentalists surely play in the hands of Christian fundamentalists and fundamentalists of different kinds. Marine Le Pen, it didn't take her long, the leader of the Front National in France, to say how we now have to stand firm against the Muslims. Of course, Hollande also said that. But she can do that much more convincingly. So if she scores better in the next presidential election than she otherwise would have, thank ISIS for that support. So it seems to me there actually is not a clash of civilizations between the Western world and the Muslim world, and other parts of the world you might find others. It seems to me there's a complicity of fundamentalists against those of us who are fighting for peace, justice, and love. Now, since religion had such a comeback in politics, something that was rather unexpected, mentioning peace, justice, and love, you might think of John Lennon, who suggested to give peace a chance, and who also suggested in the late 60s that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. You might wish to be back in those days when that certainly was true. There was some outrage by Christian fundamentalists then, but there weren't very many of them, but nowadays there are. And of course there's also Islamic fundamentalists. But it seems to me that the trouble of, despite the comeback of religion and politics, despite the popularity of Jesus, Muhammad, and possibly a few others, essentially they're downgraded. These religious figures are downgraded to labels of competing identities in a world that is run by money and where the true religion of everybody, of course, is money. So if any of these religious fundamentalists tells you something about their religion, well, actually they're just an ideological cover for the powers that be, and the powers that be are always driven by money and making more money.